Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today's episode is called Blondes Kidnapped More Often in Mexico. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel for free. You can also like, comment, and follow us. We're going to have a lot of great celebrity interviews coming up, so make sure to click on that notification bell so you can be notified every time we post a new show. Also, we ask that you post a link to today's show on all your social media to help spread the word. Now, let's get started. Today, we're going to tell you about kidnapping. It's a very ugly business that is now more lucrative and prevalent than the drug trade. It's also a fast-growing industry in the United States and Mexico. Why is it growing so quickly? Because a lot of immigrants coming into the U.S. are either being forced into human trafficking because they were kidnapped, or they were forced to come to the U.S. because of a debt they owe. And of course, once they get there, they are forced to spend years paying off that debt to whoever they borrowed the money from. Now, let's begin by discussing kidnapping in Mexico. First, it's a major industry that is growing much more quickly than the drug trade. The reason it's so lucrative is because kidnapping people in Mexico is seen as a lesser crime than drug trafficking. The sentences are lesser, and it's much easier for people who don't have resources to start a meth lab or do something like that. What they can do is just start snatching people off the streets. They get some prepaid cell phones and they're in business. Now, if somebody gets kidnapped in Mexico, most people see that as a fairly common occurrence. It's really not much worse than car theft in Mexico. So, what is the most common cause of kidnapping? The principal motives for kidnapping are to subject the victim to some form of slavery or involuntary servitude. Alternatively, they will sell them to sex traffickers who will send them off to a brothel not too far away, where they'll be drugged for a couple of weeks. And then, once they're drugged for that long, they have no willpower, they have no strength to escape. They're basically put to work for 12 to 18 hours a day working in the brothels. In the movies, people are usually kidnapped for ransom. In real life, they are often stolen and sold as slaves. Once they kidnap somebody and they get their family phone numbers off the victim's phone, then they can contact them and extort them for a ransom. People in the U.S. would be shocked if they knew how many people working at Mexican restaurants or other small businesses were there actually as employment slaves or debt slaves. Who's more likely to get kidnapped? Well, children aged 12 and over are the victims of kidnapping in more than 80% of the cases. Teen behavior and irresponsibility are often considered the culprit before officials consider the kidnapping case. This is not the case for children aged 12 and under. A younger child who has gone missing often prompts a quicker reaction from the authorities. Now, what about going to Mexico? How dangerous is it now? First of all, let's begin by saying that the U.S. discourages people from going to Mexico for many of the reasons we just described. And I can tell you that if you heard 10% of the stories that we've heard, you would never allow anyone in your family to go to Mexico again. Forget all the nonsense you see on the travel channels, on cable, on the home purchasing shows, showing you what a wonderful condo, what a wonderful place you can get at a very low price in Mexico. That's possible, but what they don't tell you is what else is going on. Jesse Ventura, the former governor and professional wrestler, lives in Baja, Mexico, and he has publicly talked about many times about how every time he leaves his home, the Mexican police pull him over and attempt to extort money from him. And then he pulls out his ID and his former governor's card. He used to be a governor. And apparently, they look at it and they just assume that he's still the governor for some reason, and they let him go without extorting him. If he did not have that idea, who knows how much of his money they would have taken from him by now. That's Jesse Ventura. Imagine what they do to ordinary citizens. For some reason, Americans who wouldn't go to the ghetto side of their town because it's considered too dangerous will be perfectly willing to go to Mexico to drink. When in reality, going to a lot of places in Mexico like Cancun and Tijuana are far more dangerous than going to East LA or places like that. Kidnapping is just one reason, one of the events you have to worry about. It's also very common now for tourists to have their money and their property stolen. You can literally have your phone, money, rental car, clothes, and your vehicle stolen within minutes of entering Mexico. And it can be done by both professionals and the police. In fact, a lot of the time, the police are working with the professionals. A professional will snatch your car or the jewelry you're wearing, and then they'll call the police, and then the police will negotiate its return in exchange for a discount of some sort. They'll call it a reward, but really it's the commission the criminals pay for the police allowing them to do business in Mexico. Here's something most people don't realize. If you're a blonde woman, then the odds of you being kidnapped in Mexico are much higher than most of the other hair colors, simply because people who purchase sex slaves will pay a much higher price for a blonde. And your visibility and ability to catch the attention of traffickers and kidnappers is much higher on the streets when you have blonde hair instead of darker hair. Almost all the traffickers in Mexico are constantly on the lookout for blonde Americans partying down in Mexico. When you see the police walking around, this is really going to amaze you. When you see the police walking around looking for criminal activity near Mexican nightclubs or tourists, then you should know that they're not only looking for criminals, they're also looking for blonde women who are attractive, who they can pretend to arrest for drunk and disorderly, and then they quickly sell them over to human traffickers. And they're gone. The odds of finding them are almost zero. So what do kidnappers look for in a victim? They'll look for a woman whose clothing is easy to remove. Now, why is that, do you ask? Well, because many kidnappers in Mexico carry scissors around for the specific purpose of cutting your clothes off as quickly as possible and replacing them with other clothes that'll make it harder for them to find you. Now, they also look for women who are walking around on their cell phones, searching through their purse, or doing other activities while walking because they are off guard and can be easily overpowered when they're so distracted. By the way, that's a really good lesson for people in America. Don't walk around in public on your cell phone. Don't sit in a restaurant talking on your phone, because that makes you a much more likely target. Now, how many kids go missing every day? Well, it's estimated that 2,300 children go missing every day in the United States. And children can go missing for many reasons. So how do you defend yourself from a kidnapper? Well, you can scratch and claw at their face, neck, or arms. If you're on the ground and you can't swing your arms around, this is likely the best way to injure your kidnapper. You can also shout to scare the attacker while you fight, if possible. What are good ways to protect yourselves from a kidnapper? Well, number one, travel in groups. Number two, take off your cell phones. Do not talk on your cell phones while you're walking around Mexico. Number three, call 911. Number four, take alternative routes back home to the hotel or to the Airbnb. Number five, when in doubt, grab. Walk only in well-lit pedestrian areas. If a car slows near you, walk away quickly. Run if you have to. Never accept any free food or drinks from a stranger in a bar or an outside location. You know, a lot of women think that, you know, they're so accustomed to guys buying them drinks in the States that they think that's also safe to do in Mexico. It's not. You're almost guaranteed to be drugged. Now, you may think they're just trying to befriend you, but most of the time, they just want to drug you, snatch you, and disappear you. With that, I want to thank you for watching. I want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel for free. We're going to have a lot of great celebrity interviews coming up, so make sure to click on that notification bell so you can be notified every time we upload a new episode. Also, post a link to today's show on the social media. Thank you, and we shall talk to you soon. Bye-bye.